Hi, Teri here from Stamping Magic. Welcome back to my channel. Today's project is another fancy fold card. It's called an arrow point fold. Now I've used the Pansy Patch stamp set together with the Pansy dies and paper from the Pansy Petals Designer Series paper pack. So let's get started. These are all the measurements you need for all the elements required to create this project. So if you're interested in reproducing it, take a screenshot so you can refer to it later. The completed card is 6 inches square, so you'll need half a sheet of 12 inch by 12 inch card scored in the middle for your base card, or you can create it from your standard size cardstock, which is what I'm going to do. Now I have two pieces of evening evergreen card here. One measures 6.5 inches by 6 inches and the other measures 6 inches square. The larger piece is going into the Simply scoreboard with the longer side across the top, and I'm going to score at 6 inches. On the piece I scored, I'm going to make a small slanted cut on either end of the 1/2 inch tab. I can then fold on the score line and burnish with my bone folder. Then I'm going to join the two pieces together by adding glue along the 1/2 inch tab, and you can use tape adhesive if you prefer, and then placing the smaller piece on top. And that creates my 12 inch by 6 inch card base. To make the arrow point fold, I'm going to score the front of the card base. Now if you use two pieces like me, your front is the piece that does not have the tab stuck on it. Okay, so it was actually the largest piece out of the two when you put them together. To help me make the scores, I'm making a pencil mark at the halfway point on the bottom of the front and the two side edges. And this is at 3 inches on all the sides. You can use the trimmer for your scoring, but I prefer to use the Simply scoreboard. I already have one of the grooves marked with a permanent marker, and I'm going to use this to help me do the scores. I'm going to be scoring from the two top corners of my front down to the centre baseline. I'm also going to be scoring from the two marks on the side to that same centre baseline. Now I'm going to line up the points where I want to score between with that groove that's marked. So I'm starting with top right and I'm going to score to the centre bottom. And then I'm going to score from the halfway point along the side again to the centre bottom. So I'm lining up those 2 points with my marked groove and then I'll score between them. Now I'm just going to repeat that for the other side. So I'm lining up the top left of my front and that centre bottom point and just scoring down. Then I'll move along and line up my mark on the side and score from there to the centre bottom. And that's it, that's all the scoring done. And this is what it looks like. I have a bumblebee mat here and also a mat from the Pansy Petals Designer Series paper. Now I need to mark each of these on the baseline at the halfway point. For the bumblebee mat, that'll be 2 7/8 of an inch. And apologies that it's out of shot here. For the Designer Series paper mat, it's 2 3/4 of an inch. Now both these pieces are going to be cut this time between the marks, so between the top corners and that centre mark along the base. I'm lining up both marks with the blade on my guillotine and then I'll cut. And then I'll repeat for the other side, lining up my points and then cutting. Now I'm going to do the same for the bumblebee cardstock, so I'm going again from the top edges, the top corners, down to the centre bottom. Don't forget to erase all your pencil marks. Now the side pieces that I've cut off from the designer series paper we need to keep, but the bumblebee cardstock we don't. I have a smaller piece of bumblebee cardstock and a little piece of the Pansy Petals designer series paper. Now I'm going to diagonally cut each of these. Now you have to be careful what pattern paper you select. If you have a pattern that has a one-way design in it, it will not work for this. So for example, stripes, when you split your paper and you position it how it will be stuck on the corners, you'll see you've got the pattern going two different ways. Okay, so just be careful what paper you select for this. I'm going to use my guillotine again just to cut these in half diagonally. Now these pieces will be layered together and then they will be added to the bottom corners of my front. Now for inside the card I have another bumblebee mat and also a basic white mat, and they'll be layered together. And then the side pieces that were cut from the designer series paper will be added onto the basic white mat. When you place this panel inside the card, it will cover up that 1/2 inch tab at the top. Now before I glue anything else together, I'm going to make the folds. Now I'm going to turn it over, and then the longest score line I'm going to fold inwards. So that's from the top of the card to the centre bottom. And then the smallest score line I'm going to fold outwards. So that's from the side mark to the bottom. Now I'll repeat that for the other side. I'm going to open up the one I've done already, so it's not in the way, and then do the longest score line folding it inwards, and then the smallest score line outwards. And that's all there is to this fold. And there is my arrow point. Now we'll glue that in place later when all the panels have been added. I'm going to start by adding glue to the middle sections. You don't want to go right up to the score lines here, just in case you get some oozing. Once you've added the glue, just press them into position. For the last sections, you want to mark where to take the glue up to. So just draw a line at the top of those triangles and then add your glue, again keeping away from the score lines and the edges and that pencil line, and then just press it into place. And then once you're done, go over all the score lines with your bone folder. And that's the card base complete. It's really super easy to do. Now I just need to decorate the front. Here is the Pansy Patch stamp set. Now this is a two-step stamp set, which means that there are multiple stamps that make up one full image. Now I'm going to be using most of the images today, and I'm also going to use the happy birthday sentiment. I'm going to use rich raspberry and fresh freesia ink, as well as a little bumblebee for the flowers, and then evening evergreen and soft succulent for the leaves. I need 2 of the larger flowers, and I'm starting with the more detailed stamp in rich raspberry ink. Then I'll switch to the block stamp and fresh freesia and overstamp it. And then for the centre, I'm starting with fresh freesia, but I'm stamping it off to make it a lighter tone. And then I'll finish up with rich raspberry, but again I'm stamping it off before stamping it onto my image. I need just 1 of the smaller flowers, and again I'm starting with the more detailed stamp and rich raspberry, and then the more block stamp is fresh freesia. The very centre of this flower is going to be bumblebee, and then the middle part is going to be again full strength rich raspberry. The stem for the bud will be in evening evergreen. I need 1 of each of the leaves. Ignore the ones I've already done, I didn't hit record. So I'm starting with soft succulent and I'm stamping off first, and then the detailed stamp is evening evergreen, but again it's stamped off first. And then finally the bud, starting with soft succulent and stamping off, and then the detailed stamp is evening evergreen, stamped off. All of the pansy images are going to be die cut using the coordinating pansy dies, and there's an outline die for each image. I've also die cut 2 bumblebee centres for my larger flowers, and I use this little triple die to do that. I've also die cut this basic white piece for my bud, and I use this die for that. I used 1 of the Hippo and Friends dies to die cut a basic white mat, and it's the largest one from this group. I'm stamping the sentiment at the top of this mat, and I'm using evening evergreen ink. I'm going to add just a little colour to this white bud piece, and I'm using sponge daubers to apply it. So starting with fresh freesia ink, I'm just adding this to the bottom of the bud, going up about halfway, and then along the edges I'm adding rich raspberry. I can now add the 3 pieces of my bud together. I've already gone ahead and added dimensionals to 1 of the larger flowers and the smaller flower, but just at the top. and I've added dimensionals onto the bumblebee centerpieces, and these can be added to the large flowers now. I've added dimensionals onto the back of this centerpiece, so I can now remove the backings and position it onto my card. And that's my card complete. It's really pretty, I love this design. And here's another look at my original card. The colours I used for the flowers are Calypso Coral and Pale Papaya. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed this project. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe and hit that notifications bell so you don't miss out on any future videos. Bye for now.